Welcome back to America Decides. In his opening remarks in the White House briefing room today, President Trump said the midair collision over the Potomac River was a dark night in our nation's history. Moments later, he shifted blame with, as he later acknowledged, no evidence to support it, suggesting the Democrats, as well as diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives might somehow be to blame.
We must have only the highest standards for those who work in our aviation system. I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre at best to extraordinary. And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before.
Nancy Cordes joins us now from the White House. During that presentation, Nancy, as you know, you were in the front row. President Trump went to great lengths to read from an FAA website. Can you convey to the audience the history of what he was talking about and how long that particular language had actually been on the FAA website?
Sure. He started arguing, Major, that under the Biden administration, the FAA had sent out a directive ordering FAA officials to hire people with severe disabilities. And he started listing out the various nature that these severe disabilities could take. Someone who was an amputee, someone who was severely intellectually disabled, and on and on. I was surprised by this. I actually started looking it up right there in the front row to see if there was anything to this. And it turns out, as reporters who were also doing the same thing I was, actually pointed out to the president in that press conference, this is a directive that has been on the FAA website since 2013. So it also encompassed the Trump administration, the first Trump administration. And in fact, it went beyond the FAA to other government agencies as well, talking about the goal of hiring people with severe disabilities, not necessarily for positions like air traffic controller, but for lower level positions. So it doesn't appear that what he was talking about had anything to do with the Biden administration specifically, which he was blaming, and also didn't have anything to do with the crash because it did not apply to the air traffic controllers who were in the tower, and it certainly didn't apply to the pilots who were flying either the regional jet or the Black Hawk helicopter.
And Nancy, it also creates the implication that whomever was hired by the FAA as an air traffic controller would not have to go through the same rigorous training procedure to become an air traffic controller.
Right. You know, I've been talking to air traffic control representatives, to congressional offices, and other experts all day long to try to figure out what President Trump is talking about when he says that the standards were high during his administration, but lower during Biden and Obama's administrations. And they simply can't point to any evidence that the standards have meaningfully changed. In fact, what they told me is that the standards for air traffic controllers have actually always been quite high, and the training program quite onerous. It lasts for 2 to 4 years. A lot of people end up dropping out. In fact, the challenge typically for years, right up until today, isn't that the standards aren't high enough, but that there are shortages because people who are skilled enough to make it to become an air traffic controller, they can probably make a lot of money in higher paying jobs. And so, you know, they say that the fact that President Trump is somehow pinning this on DEI simply doesn't bear out. And even President Trump acknowledged himself today that he really doesn't know whether the race or gender of the pilots or the air traffic controllers had anything to do with what we saw last night.
This is what journalism is, ladies and gentlemen. Someone says something, we compare it to the facts, and we report both. Nancy Cordes, excellent job, as always. Thank you so much.